insight to give strength. If it please the Most High to give talent and abilities, yeah. It could be simply public relations in keeping the neighborhood tight. It's got meaning, it's got placement and feeling, yeah. Whoa, hey, oh yeah, if it please the Most High to give insight, implementation, to give improvisation, perfection. If it please the Most High to give to the willing and the humble and the open to good and right, yes. If it please the Most High that whom He should bless, if it please the Most High, then who should disprove? The ground, the holy grounds, the feeding place, sincerity. Don't be wrong.
Yes, I.
Greetings. Hello. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear that. And
Yes, I can hear you and see you clearly in live and full colors.
Rastafari.
Yes, I have some good news. The settings look like them are C1, so we can proceed.
Give thanks.
Without any formalities, everything is unscripted because life is unscripted. And so I would like to welcome, first of all, my guests, my listeners and those who may watch this, to the In One Drop We Trust platform. And this series of talks is called Tha Groundz, Reason in Motion. And at this juncture, I would like to welcome our first guest in our inaugural episode of Tha Groundz. I would like to welcome Ras Jabulani, also known as Trevor Hall. Without a long preamble, because there are two of us in this conversation, I would just like to briefly introduce Ras Jabulani as a Pan-Africanist, a staunch freedom fighter and activist for human rights, an artist and a humanitarian. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome you, Ras Jabulani. And I'd like to say how happy I am that you have afforded me this opportunity to engage with you and share your wealth of knowledge with the people out there who I hope will drink from your well. Thank you, sir.
Yes, I give thanks for the welcoming and the introduction as well, you know. It's an honor, and I'm humble still, because when I find I can't really call you a youth now, because he's a big man with his family and you travel out and, you know, but knowing that from youth days and like all I show you your father from my and I early tried in Zimbabwe, you know. It's
Yes,
it's a pleasure still that one can honor I and I, you know. It
we
knows
give
that,
thanks.
make it so that I know that yes, at least the works I'm doing, it still can touch ones and ones and help still to open doors and, and get ones and ones to know that life is eternal, even though ones may return to the earth, but the earth will always yield life as long as we nurture it.
Indeed.
That is where I see the purpose that you sent I to help to nurture ones and one on earth.
I give
Give
thanks,
thanks.
Elder. I give thanks for those words. And with those words that you've said, you set the ground for part of our conversation today. Your story, as you mentioned, you have known me since I was a child, even without my knowledge at the time. I later learned of you in my consciousness when my desire to express myself musically through the influence of reggae music. That is how I became consciously introduced to you at a later stage in my life. But with having said that, Elder, if you would kindly tell us a little bit about yourself, starting from your entry into this world. If you would please give us a little take on where Trevor Hall, who later on became known as Ras Jabulani, where did this man originate?
Well, it's a long story still. And yeah, two ones and ones, there's a lot of interesting features within the story in terms of the journey, through our life. And yes, I through the struggle of the black man still and the journey of my ancestors. If we talk from originality, I know that part of my ancestry is from the Gambia, and my ancients are actually griots from the Gambia region of the west coast of Africa.
I think that goes without say that your ancestors would be griots because the idem is a modern day living griot.
Yes, I. I'm just still living as how my ancestors have did And
Yes,
with the trad is like my grandparents, great grandparents, my grandfather. One of those were more in the hills.
yes.
In Manchester region, in Jamaica now, right? Having farm and things, that's where I would say ones and ones within my father and so forth now can say that them born free to a certain level, but still was under the colonization of Britain. And in the 50s now, my mother and father make the journey to the UK, to England.
Mm-hmm.
Again, lured away with making false beliefs and so forth that they're going to the land where the streets are paved with gold and everyone.
If you allow me to interrupt shortly, would this be part of the historical Windrush journey you mentioned right now, Father?
Well, it was little after the actual Windrush start, but it's part still of that because it was the continuation. Because Windrush was basically after the First World War.
Right.
I mean the Second World War.
Okay.
Right? It's from 48. You know, they had to look for I now to come and rebuild England.
What they destroyed.
Yeah, well, you see, wars, the devastation of wars, the corporations we know still from the time of slavery and so forth. Ones want to put it, that is, you know, the white man and rare and thing, but it was man, cause all ones was involved in the whole slavery and colonization.
Yes.
Forcibly, many ones didn't even know really what they were getting into. It was also a part of their survival, you know. But ones who was leaving England, Europe, and those places to come to the continent, because you see, the continent was under the form of the capturing, as we don't know from the history.
Still is.
And I bring civilization throughout the world. Europe will spend more than 700 years, you know, bringing and building, civilizing the whole of Europe, you know, and it was basically an offspring in a sense, because you see, the whole thing of the order, how the order really formed. And this is where now enough ones would have to really go further into the true history and why I going through this kind of journey right now. And I am one of those that make that triangular return now.
Yes. Yeah.
And fulfill the journey. And I really give thanks to my ancestors and the Almighty that I had that strength and the guidance to be able to continue the journey from my ancestry and return home to the continent, you know.
In this time, and we give thanks for that.
2 generations now of youths born on the continent.
Yes,
you know, so you know, I really give thanks, you know, that I can be one of those who was even given that, you know, accolade as a pioneer. And it's true that, because I was born in England, in Gloucester, right? And then it's only when I was 3 years old, my father and mother, due to the way how things was going on, the hardships, the things that they had to face as well, bringing the domestic division within the
well,
you know.
So the system is set up.
And that is how still, you know, being that kind of victim where, you know, born, yes, through they actually, in a way, for their journey too, was like the fairy tale story when they came together in Jamaica and make that, when they're young, still make that that thing to jump on the ship to reach England. You know what I mean? And looking, again, you see, even though my father, in a sense, my grandfather had farm and thing there in Christiana in Manchester, Jamaica side. My mother from Craighead, and within those realms, you're more in country livity, not really in Kingston, in the city kind of, you know. So it's another leaving from there, moving through, seeing the situation in Jamaica and making that decision that them have to really try and leave, because again, the encouragement that they were getting from even their elders to leave and go make a better life, because most of the parents them always be looking to say, go and make a better life for yourself, because it's not good, yes, sir, you know.
Not much has changed in terms of that when we look at our people, whether they be in the diaspora or on the continent. It seems that message has not changed.
Well, that is the thing about it, because real parents not going to want their children to suffer the way that they felt that they were suffering. So what the influence of what is put in front of them, right, is what helped them to shape their life, to say, no, let me try and make something better for myself and for my children, you know? Like we said, real parents will try to make sure that they know still their roots, they know what going, you know, to have a foundation knowing where you're going, because it was through that still, even though with the division within my parents and so forth, other family, uncles, aunties and so forth would keep I still on track with family and so forth, and the goal to say, no, look, you can't really, because from my early age, again, I did go to Jamaica, return to England to do mainly to go through high school and, you know, secondary school them time there. And again, part of that journey to make a better life, you know. Growing still within a single parenthood now, and the harsh conditions within England, them time there in the 60s, when we know that it was still very much highly outwardly racist towards I and I as a people. And, you know, where you thought that things would be better, the kind of struggle that we had to go through. And, you know, I found that, a lot of the griot within me was now turned to knife, because from the age of 10, I was really now drumming. One of my uncles, because, you know, the influence of church was the thing where now you had to be seen as respectable, and really every Sunday you must go to church and go to Sunday school and all them things. Because again, when you really check it, the full influence of the church was part and parcel of the colonization.
Of course,
slavery of I and I. Because they had to subdue I and I spirit to keep I in line and be able for them to control I and I.
To be submissive,
You see what I'm saying? Now, with the irids that I had within I, as a griot, I was very, you know, resilient, resisting what go on, you know? I couldn't really accept the kind of abuse. When you go to them school, you is one out of a million whites, and you know, there you're subjected to a lot of verbal abuse and even physical abuse. You see, but I had to fight my way through, you know, school years first.
And mental abuse and emotional.
The emotional. You know, it was another journey that also at the same time helped to shape I and give I more focus onto where I'm going in my life.
If you don't mind lowering the camera just a bit, Elder, Yes, you were just chopping off your head a bit, and I just I want our audience to see you in the full living colors.
Yes, sir.
Thank
No,
you. So,
it's it was like no, Fair and I going to church was the only thing that could really get me to say go there now was the fact that one of my uncles was a deacon in the church, and my mother got the same church, really, like what we used to call it, well, it's the Baptist church. We used to call it Clapham Church, and you know what I mean?
yes,
And
yes.
my uncle being a musician, and we'd have a little blues band and thing, blues and rhythm and so when they was playing all this music, but when they cut church now, they might play all the church song them. So they needed a drummer, and I was 10. That's where I started playing drums.
Yeah.
And
right.
From there, the influence working with music and so forth. Drumming was something which I wasn't actually really taught to play drums by a teacher of thing. It just came natural to I,
It was in your DNA.
Yeah, it was there, strong to the point where it did carry I through the journey within music. And by the time I was 13 now, reggae music was coming in, and I even set up my little sound system,
At 13?
At 13, yes.
Man, serious? 13, you building sound system already?
Yeah, wow. Man, we used to have them little gram, and the turntable and pull that apart and get few more speaker, get a little amp, and make a little sound system. And that was my little hustling, because my mother and some of my other uncles and them have set up in. This was now in Northampton, set up the West Indian Club. So again, within my family, there was that thing of trying to keep I and I as a people together.
Right.
And the West Indian Club was like, they used to have to rent a place and set up this, and so my mother used to manage and run the bar and thing, while my uncle run the building them and cousin them and thing. So it was a thing where now I was playing blues dance, when it's a blues dance and thing, or in the shubin, where Zimbabwe we call it shubin.
Yeah, shubin, yes.
And the shubin more was, because it was a house, more like a house piece. When it
you just dark out the windows and
shubin people, you push them in, and, from there, so now I had also within family elders who were ex-Garveyites, and with that strong Pan-African mindset, and certain ones were as Rasta as well. And the message now that I was getting from the music kind of give I a stronger groundings to say, well, now, yes, Ras, you know what I mean? From those early days, from 13.
I'm interested to know. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm interested to know what kind of music was giving you that inspiration. Can you recall some of the songs that at 13 made you think in a different way to some of the other 13-year-olds of your time? If you could elaborate.
Well, in the earlier days now, ska and blue beats into rock steady, was more the influence before reggae really did come in. And even ones and ones like even Toots and the Maytals, and you had Duff one, because again through my uncle, I had an uncle who Count Shelley, who was
Count Shelley.
Count Shelley in the startup third world music in England. Him and Trojan was regarded as the first ones to set up a really black recording company and setting up and bringing even artists from Jamaica into England. That was now in the that was in the 60s into the 70s now.
Just
right?
So I get that right, Elder, you said Count Shelley it was your uncle, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow. You see, I as I said at the beginning, I knew we would be learning much today. And and you just have to sit down on enough hidden treasure. This is a beautiful thing. Sorry for interrupting. You must excuse my youthful exuberance.
No, well, still, it was a thing again. My youthfulness, and some used to regard I as a rebel because of the music. That I used to get enough groundings from listening to Ras Michael and Count Tazzy in those earlier days too, And
yes.
then when you had when the music now was coming in, you would find, so we had the sound system. By the time now I was 15, because I got through school. At the same time, when 13 was, that year when I was 13 was another kind of year for I still, because it was also the time when they were drafting a lot of, when you reach that age, when you go into school in England and things, they would be drafting you, making sure that as a youth, you had to become like a cadet. You had to join one of these clubs and things, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Army cadets.
Army cadets, and I more had a passion for flying. So I joined the Air Cadets,
Wow.
So I was in the Royal Air Force as a cadet. And that's where I even start to learn to fly aeroplane before I even could drive a car.
Right. Me never know you fly plane, right? Wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Because they wanted I for going to military training. And the kind of indoctrination that they were looking at, because when you go into their system now, remember, we are born as their subject. Under their colonization, we are their subject. We are subjugated to what they want us from even early age of our growing up. The schooling system also is part of putting us into the regions or areas where they feel we would be of more,
used to them,
an asset to them.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because once used to look at her and say, well, no, it's a bright, it's a smart youth and, intelligent youth. They used to,
Condescending
especially
and
when, yeah. And the thing about it, that because I was more under Rastafari now, even to continue going to church, it was a problem because I from I was reading and learning a little more about history, I became a problem to the pastor then, because I would be questioning them.
You asked too many uncomfortable questions.
You see, to the point where I was even banned from the church, because I did go to one of the white church and the pastor was actually, I remember that sermon, and taught to us and said, we are heathens. We black people are heathens.
Oh.
And and we were saved by them. You know what I mean? And so I look upon him and said, no man, you can't say that, because if you really look at it, it's we bring you out of the caves. And as a youth at that time, because again, with what we were learning from the little that we can read, and then what ones and ones would be showing through music, we could question the system, you see. And when we show them that, look, you are no better than we. In fact, you are lower than I am. We are descendants of kings and queens.
That's when them put in the ban.
You see what I mean? So it's a thing where it gave I that drive. Now, even within the going through school, going through the training within the Air Force and thing, because playing drums again, I was lead drummer and so forth within the marching band, because I was very athletic. I was always to the point of became a favor, because I was winning a lot of competitions and things, and that gave me more flying time. So I start from gliders to single power aircraft to then twin engine aircraft, right?
And you hadn't learned to drive yet at this point. That's amazing.
No.
That's amazing.
Well,
I've never heard of a man who learned to fly a plane first before he could drive. That's ambition of another type.
Well, the thing about it is that when you check out the system set, now they take us from we are youths and they train us in what we would say clandestinely, right? They would look at our what we really have that
your
they
skills
could use.
Yes.
And thing. So they saw that I was, in a little sense at that time, a little fearless, because I would go up on the assault course and thing and do a little parachuting and jumping first from the tower and then jump out of airplane and thing, so, and I kind of strengthen myself swimming also, to the point where, as part of training, because within the Air Force, you had to learn practically every aspect, because I was shooting on shooting range from using 2 rifle to XLR, you know,
Yes,
and
sir.
becoming, you know, at them time there, a marksman still, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, for survival, you have to do sailing as well and be able to swim to then and make sure that I get to swim 1 mile to get that certificate to show that I can swim 1 mile, right? And then going to ocean and doing sailing, and you know, it was a nice experience when I was 14 now. Just not too long before my 15th Earth Strong, I had the opportunity now to co-pilot executive jet.
At
Right,
15 years old.
Yeah, I was not yet
Just
15.
before you were 15. Right.
Yeah.
So let me just recap quickly for my viewers and listeners that you are listening to Ras Jabulani, also known as Trevor Hall, the man proficient in all elements of travel, you understand? The man can fly, the man can sail, and the man can maneuver upon the ground. So please continue. I just had to recap that for the people and to understand. I knew we were going to learn much today, but I just really wasn't prepared for this. You know, this is just amazing. Please continue.
Yes, sir. It was a thing where I had earned that because we did win some. There was a meeting of the wings, athletic and so forth, and I was like the champion and thing for the South Midlands wing, right? And that was kind of my prize now, for co-pilot the jet from England with some top ranking officers and thing to France and return, right? Now that was yeah, well, that actually became a turning point for I still, because it did. After I returned to the barracks and then going where I thought, yes, we were, because I was black amongst a multitude of whites, and I'm black, and some of the youths them who were also cadets, it was their fathers who were the ranking officers who were
that
on
you
that
flew
flight.
to France.
And I see there was some serious jealousy and thing to the point
They never like it. They never like
it. And when I thought say them draw me into a pillow fight, it became a fight. And I get a serious cut with glass and thing.
Them gang up on the eye.
When I see that blood, that's why I say, well, if I kill you, I go kill me now. I go take out some man before you take me
go
out.
join me.
You know, and yeah, mash up the place, mash up anything we could have get my hand pan. I use it pan them, and I hear about 5 of them end up in the hospital, and you know, the next day we go on parade. The sergeant major them ask for wagwan and everything, and them call me out and thing. So I just tell them, say, well, if it's this now, and I deal with where it come now, you could have killed me in a friendly fire. Well, better me left you now. I'm just left there, walk out from the parade, pick up my bag, and left the Air Force
the Army
camp.
cadet.
And hitchhike my way home, right? From there, so, you know, and it wasn't too long after that I was allowed to write my O levels and leave school at the age of 15. And then I start apprenticeship as a carpenter and joiner on the building site. So
Rasta, you is a wealth of practical as well as theoretical knowledge. That is amazing. You went from pilot to construction and carpentry. I can't imagine how much more skills you have gained.
The thing about it, again, it was a thing where living with my mother and sister, and God, Jamaica, my father was left and things, so I had to really get into work and help support my mother,
of course,
and thing, you know. And one of the things again where you were encouraged to get a trade. Now, because now the Air Force, after they'd finished school, they were writing me and begging me to come forward and thing, because I had achieved an actual place, you know. And it was like they were losing someone that they had already started training up on a certain level.
They'd already invested in you as an asset. So then why you come back quickly?
You know? So it is something where now I say, well, all right, because I was still in my music, and even started doing dance and drama, because I was, again, as a youthfulness, I run sound system. I can also have a little talent. I can sing and even mimic other artists and things on the mic with the sound system, and you know, and the dance group. Them time there as well with reggae. They still had ones and ones. We was doing what we call it, not, it wasn't hip hop them time, what we call it. Because we used to break dance, and I did have a serious little break dancing crew.
Scene.
Yeah, the American influence, but knowing that enough of the influence was even coming from yard to America.
Yes, I mean, hip hop's foundation is Jamaican. There's no questioning that.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And there we did have, I had, by the time I was 16 now, still working on the building sites, doing my apprenticeship. My spare time, I had set up dance drama groups, and I was even going into schools as well, teaching dance and drama, African dance.
At 16?
At 16, yeah, I was teaching dance and drama as extracurricular part of that program.
What was that experience like? How did, for instance, the institution's other staffers respond to this young, youthful African man coming in and teaching their students about his culture musically, anyway, if in that context? But I mean, because you would have been an authority at that youthful age, you were an authority on that, and that would have, at the time, I mean, even now it would rub people the wrong way, but at that time, it must have been a way, especially having had that experience in the Air Force Cadet, where you had already experienced the hatred towards your success or your progress. So how was that experience in terms of going into schools? How were you welcomed by the staffers, not the students?
Well, by certain of the staff, And the one particular school, it was the girls grammar school, girls high school. Girls high. Trinity Girls High School. Yeah. And it was more on the request. I think what did happen was some of the teachers did see a little show and thing that I did put on with, and some of the students were within my dance group, but I was going to the school. And they now, because they wanted to have this extra curriculum program, and certain ones were looking at, because there was a serious problem being faced within the setup within the school. Now you'll find that still the racism and the marginalization was going on within the system, and a lot of the black students were underachieving, right? Now, what I found was when I started, I was given that because again with Rastafari teachings, Marcus Garvey teachings, education, right? You know, we had to make sure that, you know, at least we can educate ourselves academically and skillfully, right? And this now, I was helping now to bring the importance to the students that education can help them go a certain way. And especially again, giving them a little more groundings within their own culture and tradition, because that was what the dance and drama group was about and what I was trying to teach, even without being taught.
Yes.
You know what I mean.
It was in your DNA. So if I can just clarify, so some of the schools that you went to were black or ethnic schools or white schools?
All the schools at that time were white schools. It was very rare, would have been, because even to have black organizations, it wasn't so easy to have that. Even though I said with my mother, my uncles, they did form the West Indian Club just to keep ones and ones together within community. It was a thing where as well, we as youths were always being denied from going to the white youth clubs and white places and so forth. So, you know, we had to create our own places, entertainment, again, like we said, with the sound system. We had a little band. The sound system now, we could go string up a brethren yard, either in a cellar or, you know, and thing. And we have a little blues dance every now and then. We could hire a hall. Sometimes it was the church hall or community halls, and set up a little dance. Now, and we used to have outings and thing, and from we holiday time we charter some bus and thing, and we go on to the seaside and link up with other ones from other towns, and you know, and thing, and that's where the sound clash and rare and thing we used to have, you know. When we talk about dancehall and things, that's how we used to deal with things. We hired the all them which were available to us, and you know, dancehall and run. You know.
Speaking of your first sound, Elder, what was the name of your sound?
Well, my first sound, because them used to call me Jati. Jati. Yeah, Jati. And then where I did at the age of 16 now, and through working on the building site and thing, and we want to get a bigger sound and really, that is where now I save up some funds, and my uncle was at the time ready to sell his sound, Count Shelley. Right?
Count Shelley was about to sell his sound now.
Yeah, him decided to sell me his sound, and that time Nugsy, who call him Jashaka, was selector for my uncle sound at that time. So him take half of the sound, and that is where Jashaka starts. And I continued with the sound system under my uncle named Count Shelley. Right? Shaka now was controlling London and the South, and we control the Midlands. You see?
What a piece of history dropping. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, so from there, that's where, you know, with Count Shelley sound now it helped to there, and again, while it helped I then to create shows and this is where some of those teachers came and they saw that what I was doing with some of my friends, young sisters and brothers with the dance group, and so they asked me to come in and teach some dance and drama. And I used to put on shows and so forth, you know, end of the year, create certain things at certain times. And it was a problem more not from the whites or so in the school, it was more, I had more problem from the parents of the black students. Because now,
why?
Well, one, majority of them are Christian inclined. And here is a young Rasta youth who them look as a rebel to society and variant thing. Yes, I was a ganja smoker, and a lot of them used to feel say I was the one that was influencing a lot of the youths now to actually come into get into where we talk about into Rastafari, getting the consciousness, leaving the church, right? So for them, it was a big problem.
Especially the black parents.
Especially the black parents, because now I'm going into the school. And, you know, it was a thing where it caused that the school I had prepared a presentation for opening day at the school, because now the head teachers and the headmistress of this particular school, Trinity, they called the parents on the open day, and now they heard their grievances and things. So they says, all right, let's open the books of all your children who are students here, right? From last year before I started the program.
Oh gosh.
up to now, this time for the open day. Now, when they saw the change that was made and the improvement, you know, in their academic, right, and they were shocked, and the headmistress and the head teachers were attributing that to what I was doing to influence them into, you know, taking the education serious, you know. At the same time, I was keeping them on that direction of knowing yourself as a Black African, you know, and, you know, we're looking forward. And this was now where it's continue as we was building with the sound. I had my band called, it was called the Far Eye Band now.
The Far Eye Band.
Now the Far Eye Band became a band that even Aswad and Mystian Roots really went all, you know, because it was a thing where my band, because I had the links with my uncle and so forth, we had a lot of artists that was coming in through from Jamaica and needed a band to back them. Even down to one time I did play drums with Bob, and when Bob Marley used to come through and never come with this band and thing, we used to do a little session with them and thing. Culture. I work with Dennis Brown, do things with, that time Michigan and Smiley used to always there by my yard and thing and, you know, Jawush, really, you know, all these artists them and, you know.
You were a very young man at this point, and you're rubbing shoulders with such luminaries, not only in the music, but as you mentioned, a lot of your uncles and community people were Garveyites. These are very powerful images for a young man, and I can see why or how you turned out to be the person that you are today. It's so insightful.
Yes, sir. And you know, because of the deprivation and so forth that we as Black people were going through and experiencing in England in those days, that's where we, even with my brethren them, we was now looking to set up, because we did start a little youth movement. And it was also at the time of where the Pan-African youth movement, we used to, you know, be setting up little events and things to bring ones and ones together, looking into the Africanness, set up little stalls and things, you know. And even through that, that's how I did meet, remember Ras Jabulani?
Yes.
Right, and I used to go Leicester, used to go a certain place, and where we had the dance, Gabby would have in the takeaway, you know, set up and, you know, so it could provide food and things. And we needed a place. So by the time, now in 76, by the time I was 19 now, that's where we decided, because we were always being denied access and when taken seriously, that, you know, we have our organization there and thing. Even with the West Indian Club, I had problems, you know, because they used to see us, you know, ganja smoking youths, you know what I mean? So
yeah, the stereotype.
We had to find one place. So we squat and took over a building. It was a Salvation Army Citadel, right center of town. Just behind it was the central bus station and thing. Just not too far from there was the train station. So you don't know the biggest shopping mall in town was right behind me with the bus station.
So all the traffic is coming through that part of town.
Mm-hmm. And we took over that building. It was a struggle, it was a fight. 76 was a year where I find that enough revolutionary moves was made by Black African youths. Right here in South Africa, you don't know about
Yes, yeah.
Soweto uprising and thing. And you know, we were going through also political problem and uprising there in Jamaica, and you know, so it brought in a new kind of change. Now a lot of it was being underneath. They were looking at us as Black Panther, you know, youths from the Black Panther. So, you know, they thought we were within that, mainly because of their investigation, finding out that we are very much in support of liberation. You know what I'm saying? Because we used to have meetings with exiles and so forth that was coming through, right? When we set up the center, it was the first Black self-help center in the country. And we call the movement Mata Fankanta Youth Movement. Mata meaning come, Fankanta meaning guard yourself. It was Mandinka and Amharic, right? So it was guard yourself against self-destruction. That was our movement. And that
say it again for our viewers. The full name.
Mata Fankanta.
Mata
Fankanta Youth Movement. The abbreviation MFM was known all over the country because now it was a center where we then assist others, elders and things. We keep dingy, we keep, you know, we helped ones on ones. I and my brethren and sisters, and we helped influence others too. Squat and take off. We helped Ancient Benji, Malachi, Levi, and so forth too. That's where we went and took over 3 houses in St. Agnes Place in Kennington.
And what kind of response did you get from the authorities?
No, well, the authorities at that time very skeptical towards us because of the nature of us as Rasta youths. But then when we got the center and they saw we running it in a fun, the only problem they had was the ganja smoking and thing, right? As Rasta, we was providing now facilities for the youths. I just plug in.
No problem, don't worry.
Battery.
And you were also providing support for elders as well as, I'm sure, women and young people in the community. So the authorities, would they turn a blind eye to the herbs, or you came to some form of agreement, or informal agreement?
What was really happening was that yes, there was certain blind eye because it was creating a little stability within the community. The center was now not just catering for Black youths, but all youths were coming because, again, you know, in England, there's a lot of marriages and so forth. So you had a lot of white youths that were you know, family to some of the Black youths and and things. So, and we had even Asian youths and things coming in, right? Now, we provided facilities that most other organizations and things could not, because we was doing everything out of our own pocket. I run the center with the sound system, the band. That was the center in the 70s, from 76 right up into the 80s, and it became the center where if you had a sound system or you had a band, if you didn't play at that center, then
you never did play at all.
you know what I did. And when we used to have holiday time, you don't know, roadblock, you know? The
Does the center still exist, or the organization?
No.
Okay.
No, and you know, unfortunately, after I left, well, put it this way, for 5 years was running the center. Basically, we were running it out of our own pockets. We never get grants or any financial support from any other where and so forth, right? But we were providing certain programs. It was a center where we were even doing, as soon as when computers were coming out, I think we had computer program going on, teaching ones-on-ones to deal with computers in the late 70s. The center, we had our own studio. We even had our own printing press, right?
Wow.
And we were setting up our own little publications and so forth. And, you know, we had facilities that we was teaching dance, drama, music, and we had the best cricket and football team in the town, and netball team area, and just down the road we had got access to a gym, which was through that time was the Commission for Racial Equality, right? Because there was we managed to then align ourselves so that we were also giving service to ones-on-ones, you know? My dance drama groups used to do outreach programs from that time, and going to community centers and even schools. That time I could now deploy them to different areas and so forth, you know? And it was where the 12 tribes of Israel came, and through Gadman, enough of the early members and the executives from the 12 tribes, they came in, and we helped them to take a squat and take over a building in Manchester, whilst we also had helped them to Kemshot Street in Stockwell, yeah. Then take over London. Like I said, St. Agnes Place, the Rasta House. We helped them assist take over and set up Rasta House in Kennington. Ones-on-ones in Tottenham. Tottenham was like my second home in England. And RUZ, we just up at top of the road of St. Anne's Road, right? Not too far from where I used to took over a building and turned that into RUZ, Rasta Universal Zion, right? So, you know, we were helping ones-on-ones, influence ones. Harambe Center was set up in Birmingham, and Yasantua Center also set up in London. You know, that's where Linton Kwesi Johnston and thing was running the True Brewery, you know,
Wow.
and thing, and you know, we had the Pan-African movement that was supporting the liberation movements on the continent and raising funds and so forth. That's where I met with a few of the liberation leaders, even Mugabe and Joshua Nkomo and thing, and you know, I believe it's yeah, I was shown that a file that they kept on me, ZANU-PF, from the time that we had supported and you know even give a little funds.
Wow.
So they do the Arambis and we did a little event. That was the time when they did the Lancaster. They were coming and negotiating the Lancaster agreement.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And you know, we met with them. I did a presentation with Dance and Drama Group, and then I was asked to do a little speech and handed them envelope and so forth, you know. And yeah, through that center, we support, like we said, we supported a lot of the exiles as well. I know even people like Robert Shaw and so forth, you know, where whilst they were sort of in exile, used to pass through that center and thing, you know.
Robert Mugabe, who was that? Sorry, can you say that again?
You know, Robert Shaw, and
from
you know, from one of the nephews, Mugabe.
Oh, Robert.
Yeah, and
Robert, wow.
Others, you know, others them. Enough of them used to pass through and thing, you know.
I got a bit confused because there's so many of the Joaos, so I was
thinking, yeah.
Yeah, but
I'm running Red Fox now.
Yeah, I'm with you now.
Red Fox and thing. So, you know, it's like the center became also a target, you see, because for ones who wanted to try, we had to even fight physically against the National Front and thing. They want to come and destroy and rear and you know. But even when they wanted to get a lockup and thing for running the center and not making myself available for work and thing, you know. And I'm running the center without training as a social worker, and I've been running it for years.
Yeah, they're trying to find ways to just shut you down.
Yeah, and it created a thing where we went to court and I win the court case and thing, and then social services had to now send me for training. When I did go for training as youth and community worker and social worker, the professor at the university threw up them on and said they can't teach me because I'm teaching them.
Oh.
Because I was already experienced in dealing with social work.
So what happened to the certification? Did they give you the certification?
They gave me, and then they even asked me for the following years to become a trainer of trainers.
Wow. And did you do that?
Well, I thought seriously about it, but then it was at the time where now 1979, me and Bob, we did a show, Bob Marley. We did a show where I was playing percussion for him. The band was backing him in Leeds. And then in the show I said I'm planning to go to Africa. After him come from Africa, this was for 1980. After him come from Africa, did want I to go to Tha Groundz to work on the album and thing. And his return from Africa, him say, nah man, Africa. Him say, he just tell me, Jati, you know Africa, you know. And that was just on his mind. Right? And say, Africa, you know. Because his plan was to return to Africa. He had already made certain inroads. That was when he had come to Zimbabwe and was in West Africa and so forth, you know. And even in Ethiopia,
yeah.
Shashamane and thing, right? So I must tell her, no, make you focus on Africa. Following year and pass, right? And that prompted to say, well, now, you know, Africa. And my intention was to say, well, the center that we set up as MFM, we can make an extension and set up in Africa. So it was a thing now for me to decide now where in Africa am I go. I kind of had a lot of focus now on Southern Africa because I was actually involved with ones from South Africa, ones from Zimbabwe, ones from, you know.
Through your political activism and fundraising and freedom fighting. Well, okay,
yes,
so that's where the link is. Okay, I understand. I understand.
So I just said, well, all right. I had to know, once I did say to my brethren, them, look, my left, you know, Africa, I'm going now. I was even under some investigation from MI6 and thing, because what we was doing with the liberation movements and so forth, you know. And I just decided to do a little more studies and thing. I even went to Germany and studied the Montessori pedagogic system of teaching handicapped children, children of disabilities with normal children in the same classroom. Because I had already started, I was encouraged to do that, mainly because I was doing a little program with deaf and dumb children. And I was drumming and teaching them to dance and things, just using the vibration. They couldn't hear, but they could feel the vibration of the drum. Yes, yeah. And it helped them to do also therapy within movement and so forth. You see. So, you know, and this is, it was something of interest for I to go and went to Germany.
And these are all skills that you had the foresight to see would benefit your people if you returned with these skills to Africa. At such a young age, you were so upful in your decision making and your reasons for doing the things that you were doing.
Yes, sir. This was the kind of things that what was going on around me, you know, because my elders were always talking, you know, Africa, and I there was a time I was planning to go Jamaica, and the way the political system and thing was going on and thing, my father tell me don't come back to Jamaica.
It was a dangerous time there. I've seen from my own research and from historical documentation, them time there. Woo! Yeah.
So, you know, my focus was totally now on Africa. So, yes, being the adventurous man, I was, young man, and, still full of zeal and thing. Show me brethren them, yeah, man. I'm ready for go Africa now. And say, so, where I going to do with the center, and where I going to do with the sound and the band and everything? And, no, man, how you say, no, man, a time now. This was in 81. And I just said, well, all right. I had to now look at how to get funding for the center to continue. Now, I did approach social services and so forth, and I put a proposal to them and thing, and they actually granted I £5 million
to keep the center running.
To keep the center running for 5 years. I didn't tell them I was planning to leave, because they thought it was going to be a thing for keep idea and running program. But it was salaries for 5 people for 5 years, running costs for all the projects that we had got running and so forth, and to continue things at the center. Right? And I just leave that to the executive in the center, and I packed my bag. I during that period I linked up with the International Voluntary Service, and I was kind of I'm looking at these white volunteers going to Africa, but I don't see no black within that service. And when I even went to one of the meetings, it was only Asians I saw, no other black. And they were even telling me that I'm the first black and first Rasta to even approach them and go into,
with those kind of interests.
Volunteer. Yeah. And when they looked at my background and the little experiences that I had, because I said to them, well, I wouldn't mind going where I can even help set up a little center, work with the youth, because I was already a qualified carpenter and joiner, right? And I could use that to give skills training to youths as well. And with my youth and community work experience and so forth, and social work experience, that's where they actually found me a place in Swaziland.
Okay.
Now, yeah. Now, it was kind of funny for me because as a Rasta man now, the placement was to teach at a Catholic mission school.
Wow, talk about poles apart.
My David. So, all right. I ready, packed my bag. I get a flight which took me to Kenya. So the first place I land, spend a day and night was in Kenya. Right? So this was January, the 5th of January, 1982.
Okay.
And right, and on the 6th of January, I get the flight into Swaziland, and that's where I really start on the program. Kenya was for me a real eye opener. Kenya to me, when I walked through Nairobi and thing. It was like I was walking through old England.
The way they
You know
build
what I'm-
it, yeah.
The,
The
it
architecture.
was a replica of old London, certain parts of England, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And, you know, and then when we go in the more ghetto area, you know, is more like yard, you know?
That look like, yeah. See,
You know?
see. I
So
was.
it was a nice experience still for it, you know, coming in.
And it must have
from the
been joyous to walk out on the street and see people that looked like you filling the streets and shops and being served by people that looked like you. That must have been a welcoming experience too.
Oh yes, definitely. 'Cause I hardly the plane was like, I think I was only about 2-3 of us as black people was on the flight.
Seeing.
Everyone else was white, you know. And when I come off the flight and I did make friend with one of the air hostess, and she was my guide. You know, she did really show me around, you know.
Around
Yeah.
Nairobi.
You know, and introduce her to, you know, Africa in a sense, you know.
Wow.
Well, I would say urban Africa, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Which dispel a lot of the when you looked at the way the city was built up and thing, they don't show you that, you know.
No, because that's for them to know, and you never to find out.
You see,
Yeah.
right? Now, when I fly into Swaziland, Swaziland was like going, you know, when I land at Matsapa Airport, you know. Yeah, I said, all right, now I'm in rural, real Africa. You know,
It's a very small place. Which town was it? Maseru. What's the capital of Swaziland again?
The capital
No, Maseru is
is
Lesotho. Sorry,
Mbabane.
Babane.
Yeah,
Right.
Mbabane. But Matsapa Airport was in Manzini, and the school where I started to work was actually in Manzini, but I had to first spend a couple days in Babane at the IVS headquarter house, right, for what they call orientation and thing, right?
Induction and all them thing there, right?
Right, and this is where now I see now, you know, the first night I spent in Swaziland, Mbabane. As I come off the plane and thing, I was picked up, taken on that nice little drive from Manzini through Ezulwini Valley into Mbabane, you know. The beauty of Ezulwini in itself, you know, when you see the tranquility, you know, of the country that time, you know. It was, yeah, you know. And when I reached Mbabane, going the houseway was one of those old colonial house, you know, where them have thing, and you know, the other whites. It was run by it was he was from India, right? And he was excited to see I still now, you know, as a black man. And what was the other thing what was their excitement and everyone when at the land, people are saying this Rasta man, you know, wow, you know, some of them thought, no, it's a Sangoma.
Okay, because they'd probably never seen Ras before.
No, not for them. You know, they never seen it. So it was like in the airport, it was like, hey, you know, cause enough, you know,
consternation.
Never seen a Rasta come in on an aeroplane like that, you know, and then being picked up, you know, by whites and rare, you know. So it was like, you know, so that alone was turning enough eyes, and you know, ones want to know where I'm from, what you know, yeah.
Of course, for context, our audience may not understand, you know, the context of the time. Swaziland was like a protectorate of South Africa in a way, wasn't it, at the time? And of course, South Africa was apartheid at the time. So I'm trying to give our listeners and viewers the context of why it would be so shocking for black people to see a Rasta, you know, embarking from a plane and being picked up by white officials and you know, being you know, driven around the town, you know, because their contact with whites would have been very limited to, you know, the roles that you mentioned previously for the Windrush generation, which was subservient roles, you know, stay in your place, work in your areas, congregate in your areas. So yeah, I'm just trying to give our listeners and viewers that sort of context as to why, you know, you're saying that they reacted in that way when you first arrived in Swaziland.
Oh yeah, it's like that, and it was a thing as well where even when I just after Ireland and then left the house and just take a little walk into the town and actually go look a little dry, you know what I mean? And by the time of this the sunset, you know, I did hear about the Swazi ganja and thing, you know, and we did have a little hustler youth them and thing, you know, we find them there in the town. And enough of them start rushing me because they want to know where I'm from. Are you Jamaican? Do you play music? Really. So, you know, that in itself became the attraction, you know, and thing. And yeah, I just say, well, that was when I was coming towards now is sunset and thing, you know, and we got find a little spot on that tree and, you know, burn a nice spliff and say, yeah, I didn't make a phone call. I didn't make a phone call just to tell my mother, tell me reach and rare and, you know, everything Irie and thing. And, you know, even like a couple of the calls, my brethren them and thing, you know. And then just sat and going my meditation. And then some of the other volunteers come and join I, you know. Cause you know, it was even one where I get this.
So you start influence them from the first minute you arrive.
You know?
Yeah.
And things. So yeah, that was the experience. Then I was taken to the next day. I was taken to the school to actually see this was run by the Salesian fathers. Right?
This was the Catholic school.
The Salesian high school. And what I found was it was the actual center of the town because the cathedral was there at the school.
Was part of the school, right?
And they had a boarding boarding facilities and so forth there and thing, right? Then met with them there and thing, went back because they had to then, they made the arrangements for the accommodation. So a couple of days after that, went to now stay at the school. And the first evening now, as sunset, what I did do as well, first thing I did buy a little drum, right? And as sunset come down, I was in the backyard, I was staying in the teacher's quarters, right? And the students, it had already started to, my presence already started to create a little
an
vibe.
Excitement.
An excitement, and the students want it. So when I
Was
came out,
was it a co-ed school, or was it boys or a girls school, or mixed?
it was actually a boys' school.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a boys' school, but they had an orphanage, right, where they had other children. Because the actual project that I was to run was to look after some juvenile delinquent youths, right? And these youths, they were called the Morgites.
The Morgites.
Now, yeah, the Morgites, because on the school, these youths were kept living in the old mortuary.
Goodness me.
The school had its own clinic, and it had its mortuary. You know, you remember.
As you said, it was the center of the town, basically, right?
Like, and remember, through colonization, the church was the center.
Yeah.
Right. So everything was there for the it was like their first clinic with mortuary and thing whilst they built up the town. You see what I'm saying? And it was a school again for the boys. And
once they built a bigger mortuary, they converted the old mortuary into a dormitory for the delinquents.
Yes, they didn't even really convert it, to tell you the truth. God, the youths, I find them sleeping on the slabs, the cold concrete.
Lord of mercy.
With them cover, they did tile the slabs, right? They didn't give them proper beds and things. They just give them a little sponge and a blanket.
So them treat them like real old prisoner, but they were just juvenile.
Well, the thing is, they kept them. What I found out later was that, you see, what was going on, they were actually using these youths to attract funding.
The same old tricks.
Same old. Because what did happen, I was given first a little space in the workshop at the school to teach some carpentry to these youths. But I was receiving certain hostility from the other teachers who were there. There was this other German teacher, because the school was being run by Italian and Irish fathers who were monks, Catholic monks. And they had other teachers from Germany, from other countries and things, right? And then the workshops, these two German, one of them of him long black hair, so enough of them used to call him Jesus. So he never liked me because my locks now was long, and I had a rough beard. Yes, because I was only 24 when I landed in Africa.
See.
And after coming, after leaving the center with 5 million, I only enter Africa with 200 pounds in my pocket. Right? And I'm here still. Now is 39 years.
Because you had a plan, you had a mission.
Yeah.
You had a mission.
I give thanks. It's 39 years now. I'm here on the continent. And I don't, nothing now gonna take me out. I can go and visit out there and thing, but
we actually give thanks because we are so honored and blessed to have ones and ones like yourself amongst us, and I'm just blown away because on the one hand I'm not surprised by some of your stories that you've revealed so far. On the one hand I'm not surprised, but on the other hand I'm completely surprised by just not the audacity of it, but the powers. I think the easiest way I can say is just the powers of it, because your African ancestry, you did not deny it, you embraced it, and because of your embracing it, Africa embraced you, and now you embrace Africa. So it's the circle of life, so to speak, and it's a beautiful thing. And just learning so much about where you've been. One of the things that actually tickles me, because we have much to cover, and as I said earlier when we spoke off camera, this conversation is not going to end today, because there's far too much to first of all to relate on your part, and then for us who are taking in your message, there's much to actually download and break apart, so that we can understand and overstand not only your story but our own story, because you've literally given us, in the short narration that you have given us, Elder, you've taken us through several African liberation struggles, several Caribbean liberation struggles, the Windrush period, and independence periods. We haven't actually covered those in conversation, but I'm just reflecting on some of the ground that we're going to need to cover at some point. And given the gems that the IDM have, you're coming like the beers, and I just gem after gem after gem. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, we're still in Swaziland. We're only in the first couple of days this man landed in Swaziland. And, I know a little bit of your journey in Africa, but I know there's just so much more to cover. Because, Elder, really and truly, I mean, this is just, there is just so much for young people and people in general to learn from your contribution. And we haven't even, I don't think we're even hit 2% yet. We're still in the 0 point something percentile, and wow, I'm just blown away. I don't really, I'm just rambling because I can't put this into words, the joy that I feel. I'm so full of joy right now because, I could have had the opportunity earlier in life, but again, this was the exuberance of my own youth. You were there, you witnessed a lot of it, and I'm just thinking to myself now how privileged I am to be able to share this with others. And hopefully I can prepare them, for a journey that they should take seriously now, and with with elders such as yourself to guide us, man. It's such a blessing. Thank you so much.
I give
Thank you
thanks.
so much. Thank you so much. But it's
Yeah, man.
such an honor and such a resource. You are a true resource, a fountain. A fountain. We give thanks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I give thanks. The next, I got some very sad news yesterday also of Mama B, the matriarch that had traveled from Jamaica and was here in Cape Town for just over 20 years. She had just passed away, so ones and ones were asking me if I can get to Cape Town and things. So I think tomorrow I'll be making that trek to Cape Town.
My sincere condolences, higher. Because I appreciate the situation everywhere. Every corner tight everywhere, but we must still support each other some way, somehow. But once again, Elder, thank you so much, man. Like I'm gonna start calling you Ras the Beers, because I just drop gems every time. It's like, pearls of wisdom. No, me give thanks, honestly. I'll not take much more of your time up now because I'm just bubbling with energy. Give thanks, Baba.
Yes, sir.
You have a good day.
Thanks. Blessed love, man.
Blessed, highly blessed.
As I say.